What's going on, everyone? Recently, the town of Salem community had a developer poll to vote on what was the most overpowered role and what was the most underpowered role in the game. The biggest divide amongst the community has been a role that has long been a problem. From other creators trying to solve it to many reworks, Trickster is by far the most problematic role in the game currently. No one can really decide if it's really strong or dumb weak, but I'm here to try and solve that. This is going to be a role rework that no one else has seemed to really lean in on. It has help from some of the best role reworkers in the community, and it has some support and some thoughts from even some Discord moderators. So this is the role rework for Trickster. The first thing we should probably have a baseline of is what is wrong with Trickster. There are a lot of things wrong with Trickster, but I'm going to set it to 3 specific ones that me, personally, I think is what makes Trickster a bad role. Number 1, and the biggest reason, the reward for successfully playing Trickster, successfully guessing someone who is attacking, is you get to stop playing the game. That, yes, Bodyguard's the same way. That's a completely different role, unfortunately. So the reward for being correct is no longer getting to play the game, which is kind of not smart, in my opinion. Number 2, as Trickster, you are better off dead than you are alive. Retributionists can make Trickster so much more useful than Trickster ever is alive. Retri will never die from Trickster. Retri can sling Trickster anywhere and very rarely have any consequences for it, unless it's a rampage. But even then, like, if I know, hey, this is the serial killer, they're not going to rampage, chuck a Trickster at it. Dead Trickster, preferably. And then number 3, there is not... A lot of people don't play Trickster with a lot of strategy. It's a lot of, okay, here's number 1, click the button. Oh, that didn't work. Here's number 2. Here's number 3. And so trying to find a way to make Trickster a little more useful without just neutering the role completely. So this completely reimagines Trickster in a way that I personally think benefits the role quite a bit. It's not perfect, and I've never made anything that everyone's liked, but I want to propose my idea for the brand new Trickster. Trickster is part of town still, and is no longer a town-killing role. It is now under town support. Still has the same attack, defense, and goal. Has one ability, which is Trick. You can trick someone, redirecting their action back onto themselves. Trick has 3 uses, and it happens in the nighttime. It gets a little bit back to the old Trickster with 3 uses, but this is different. So if the target was going to visit that night, they now visit themselves. If that target was going to attack, they now attack themselves with the same power of attack. So a serial killer was going to attack someone, that's a basic attack. It comes back to them at a basic attack. If the target was not visiting, was visiting themselves, or has an astral visit, the trick fails. So this only really attacks people that go out and can be found by, let's say, a lookout. If your target was successfully tricked, they will receive a message that says, you were tricked and your action has been redirected. They will not receive any information that night from their visit. So, if a sheriff gets tricked, they don't know who's sus or not. There are some exceptions to this, and there will be some things that we get to later. Trickster will not receive any information from the person they tricked. So the Trickster won't know that they tricked a sheriff, and the sheriff is innocent or suspicious. And this has a caveat, so this sounds a lot like Witch, right? And that's kind of, you know, the town redirector, a townie witch is what has been kind of described from the people that have looked at it. I'm going to change the message that you would receive if you get witched. Because right now, if you get witched, it says, hey, you were witched. And so you know, oh no, there's a witch in the game. But I'm going to put that in half. And the witch is going to have the same message as the Trickster. So it'll say, you were tricked and your action has been redirected. You can't just say, oh, there's a witch. You now have to say, oh, there's a witch or a Trickster. And so this already makes a pretty strong witch even stronger. And that's one of the big caveats with this, that I would be nerfing Witch in other ways if I was doing this, but we're just trying to fix Trickster right now. Some more information on Trickster. You cannot trick the same person twice. That's the same as Witch. That's the same as Tavern Keeper. Makes sense. Trickster cannot be roleblocked, nor can be witched. So Trickster is immune to Witch. Witch is immune to Trickster. Trickster is immune to Trickster. Originally, Trickster could be roleblocked and Trickster could handle Witch. However, Mystic, she pointed out some priority things that I'm going to now discuss. If Trickster is not, so Trickster is what would be considered a redirector, which in the priority of how the game is handled is slotted in second. This is just coming from Mystic. She has explained it a whole bunch, so she just had this copy paste ready to go. Admirer, Jailer, and Pirate go first. And that makes sense because they're someone that does an action before anyone else. Then roleblock, immune rolls, and redirectors go second. That's your Trickster and your Witch and all that. Roleblockers go third, investigative rolls go fourth, protective rolls go fifth, and killers go last. That's just how the game is coded and handled, and so Trickster needs to be immune to roleblock to fall into that second slot. If you want to see a deeper explanation on it, you can always just ask Mystic, but in the description of this video is the PDF that I used to send out to all these people, and it has the explanation that Mystic gave me. A lot more things that you'll see coming from Mystic. She did an awesome job helping me work this all together and workshopping this. So that is why Trickster can't be roleblocked. That is why Trickster is immune to Witch. Two other things. Trickster is no longer suspicious to the sheriff. That's just, it helps Coven, and it just makes it really frustrating for Trickster. And then Trickster does not create blood. I don't think it ever created blood before, but I wanted to make the distinction that Trickster will not create blood, even if it tricks, a serial killer back into itself. Achievements. So, with this complete rework of Trickster, 4 completely different achievements. And so I want to thank Curtis for getting me some of the graphics to make all these. I did all the graphicking, but he gave me some of the template stuff. So there are 4 brand new achievements for Trickster. Achievement number 1 is called Lips Are Sealed. 10 coins. Trick a voodoo master into silencing themselves. That originally was on the list, but Mystic encouraged me to switch one of the other ones. And you can see the changelog for everything that I've changed also in the PDF in the description. King and Knight as One is a 10 coin achievement. Trick the monarch into knighting themselves. That creates a whole nother can of worms, but it's something that the game already happens to handle with Witch. So I thought, that's fair. It gives a more of a supporter role to Trickster rather than just a killing role. You Need More, or You Need It More, is a 10 coin achievement. Trick a cleric into protecting themselves when they are attacked. That one's probably pretty specific, but that one also sounds really cool. Cleric goes to heal someone. You trick the cleric as the Coven leader with a basic attack goes to hit the cleric, and the cleric is saved. And then the last one, and the funniest one, is Taste of Your Own Medicine. 25 coins. Trick the poisoner into poisoning themselves. And you'll see, that's first off the secret achievement. And then number 2, you'll see with the interactions that the poisoner has to be going to poison their target before they can be poisoned themselves. So it's kind of a niche situation, but it is something that I think is the perfect example of, oh, this is a really cool way to use Trickster. So that is the achievements for Trickster. Let's go to the interactions. Interactions. Trickster does not affect targets that aren't visiting themselves, and the following roles. Jailer doesn't visit. Mayor doesn't visit. Prosecutor, veteran, deputy. Seer visits 2 people, so just let's not have Trickster worry about that. Lookouts and astral visit. Tricksters cannot trick themselves. Admirers, amnesiacs. Retributionists, they do visit a dead target, but that's still kind of difficult to handle. Witch, now, as of Mystic being smart, is not affected by Trickster. Hexmaster's astral. Ritualist is astral if they are ridding someone, not if they are attacking with the Necronomicon. Conjure, Necromancer, Jester, Pirate, Doomsayer, Soul Collector, Pestilence, War, Famine, and Death. So all the turned apocalypse are completely fine to deal with Trickster. Trickster does affect these targets if they are visiting another player other than themselves. Monarch, Vigilante, Sheriff, Investigator, Coroner, Psychic, Tavern Keeper, Bodyguard, Cleric, Crusader, Tracker, Spy, Coven, Attacking with the Necronomicon, Jinx, Medusa, Illusionist, Dreamweaver, Enchanter, Potion Master, Poisoner, Voodoo Master, Wildling, Vampire, Cursed Soul, Executioner, Arsonist, Serial Killer, Shroud, Werewolf, Plaguebearer, Berserker, and Baker. Now let's kind of dive into each. What would these interactions be like if the Trickster were to visit that person? So Monarch will knight themselves. This already happens with Witch. Does that mean the Monarch has defense? Yes. Is that just something to deal with? Yes. It's an achievement, too. Vigilante will shoot themselves if they go to visit. Now, you'll see some comments earlier on, this is up to interpretation, but with the current changing, or with the 1.2 version of Trickster, as I'm calling this, Vigilante, they go to shoot someone, they get tricked by Trickster, they only shoot themselves. Only time when Vigilante would shoot themselves. Sheriff will investigate themselves. And with a note, this can proc the achievement for assisted interrogation, so this adds some more achievement potential. Investigators will investigate themselves. Coroners will examine themselves. Psychic will have a vision on themselves. Tavern Keeper will attempt to roleblock themselves, however they are immune to being roleblock. This will proc the achievement Party of One. Bodyguard will protect themselves without using their vest. Cleric will barrier themselves without using their self-heal. This will proc the achievement Divine Shield. Crusader will have a crusade at their own house. This is a big note. This can kill the Trickster if they are the only one to visit the Crusader's house. So kind of a ticking time bomb, you will. Tracker will now track themselves, and that will proc the achievement Silly Witch, which doesn't really line up well, but is what it is. Spy will place a bug on themselves. This immediately goes off stating your target was tricked and their action has been redirected. And if anything else happens to Spy, maybe like the baker gave them bread, the Spy will see that the baker has bread or whatnot. Well, the Spy, it will go off saying, your target was tricked and other things happen. Spy is the only town role that Trickster does not take the message from, or the message is not gone from. There's only a few other roles where that does that, and we'll get to those. Coven, attacking with the Necronomicon, the attack directs back into themselves. So there's 3 examples where that's kind of special. The Coven leader, who are not empowering their offense, just get whacked with a basic attack. Medusa will stone themselves if they have a charge for it. An Enchanter will enchant their own will and roll if they were going to do so, attacking with the Necronomicon. Jinx will attempt to jinx someone at their own house, and this again, just like Crusader, could potentially kill the Jinx. Medusa will attempt to stone themselves. That does use a charge, by the way. Illusionist will attempt to illusion themselves. Dreamweaver will attempt to dreamweave themselves, but as they are evil, they will be immune to being dreamwoven, similar to like if you dreamweave a jester. Enchanter will enchant/forge themselves. Poisoner will attempt to roleblock themselves, however they are immune to being roleblocked. If the Poisoner was going to poison a player, though, the Poisoner will now be poisoned, which I find is a very funny interaction. Voodoo Master will silence themselves, and Wildling will sense themselves. They will be able to see that the Trickster visited them. So a lot of these, like with the Coven, like you will know if you got hit by a Trickster, because like if you are dreamwoven, or if you're a dreamweaver and you get visited by Trickster, it will say you were someone tried to dreamweave you, but you are immune, things like that. And obviously with like Voodoo Master, you're now silenced. Now let's go to all the other rules. Vampires, if they go out to bite, they will end up biting themselves and die, which is a funny interaction as well. Cursed Soul will attempt to take their own body, which fails. Executioner will attempt to target themselves for an execution. This will proc the message, somehow you targeted yourself, your Iron Will rejects this decision, so that does not make Executioner useless. Arsonist will douse themselves, and there's a whole bunch of things with arsonists. So the Trickster still gets doused from visiting the arsonist. This procs the arsonist achievement for this complicates things. And arsonist will still receive the message that they got doused, so they'll have to clean themselves off. Serial killer will attempt to attack themselves, but will have too high a defense. If rampaging, and this is a note for all rampaging, and you'll see this with werewolf and berserker, if rampaging, the serial killer just straight visits the Trickster. Like, it's kind of like a tavern keeper redirects, or a tavern keeper kind of gets killed in the crossfire of a rampage. If they visit, same thing as Trickster. And so the serial killer will just straight visit the Trickster. And the message for Trickster's death will be similar to Tavern Keeper and Poisoner. Target visited a serial killer, and they would not have a will. Shroud will attempt to attack themselves, but will have too high of defense. Werewolf, if night 1 and 3, will start tracking themselves, which is very dog-like. And Werewolf with Rampage will attack the Trickster. So just straight visits the Trickster. Plague Bearer will visit themselves to plague. The Trickster also still gets plagued. Berserker will attack themselves. If they have Rampage, they only attack the Trickster. And Baker will attempt to give themselves bread. They already have bread, so it doesn't do anything. So, that is all of the interactions for my rework of Trickster. If you want to go through all the history, I have the change logs and the PDF. There's a bunch of awesome comments that we're about ready to get to from other people that I've reached out. So let's look at those comments. So the biggest help by far was Mystic, Miss Magius. She did a lot of the workshopping with me, and so a lot of the smarter decisions in this rework are hers. But I want to go over some of her comments and her thoughts. So she, when in the original making of the Trickster role, she mentioned the Redirector's Paradox, and you'll have all that information down in the description. And so you can see all that information. But here are some of the other comments she gave. Seeing that Trickster was going to a full townie redirector, which was an interesting one. She was the one to suggest, you know, Trickster and Witch should not be able to interact. And so that was the change there. There was an original build of this where the Trickster would know if their trick was successful or not, and they would, they would know if their trick was successful or not. But one of the things that when I was creating the rework, I was wary of was I hated that it felt like Trickster was a pseudo TI. Kind of like how Admirer is a pseudo TI. Sometimes is a better town investigative than it is town support. And so we tried to take some steps to get away from that. And one of the thing was Trickster just uses the 3 and they have no clue if it worked or not. And they don't know if, you know, they tricked the serial killer and now they have defense. She was the one that mentioned that, you know, it originally, like if the werewolf was rampaging and the Trickster tricks the werewolf, the werewolf dies. And she was the one to suggest, let's not let that happen. And I agree with that. You know, that's kind of bad for the werewolf. She's the one that mentioned the executioner interaction. And she said, yeah, it's a townie witch. It's going to be strong. So that's okay. And then some corrections later on, correcting how the spy message works and how the berserker interaction is. And then she was the one to suggest the title for Taste of Your Own Medicine. And she was the one to suggest changing originally the achievement was similar to an achievement that Trickster normally got, and how it would work here is you trick the bookholder, the coven with the Necronomicon, into killing themselves. But now all the achievements are support-based and not just killing-based. Other comments, this one's coming from DGF. He is a Discord moderator, awesome person in the community. And so here was 3 comments of his that he would like to see and some thoughts to throw in. I just wanted to keep it on version 1.2, so this is what would be added next, so that there were some sort of comments to consider. So, a way for serial killer to have a buffer night 1, so serial killer just doesn't smack, or the Trickster doesn't smack the serial killer right back in its own face. to keep consistent with which, vigilantes should be trickable night 1, even if they aren't visiting. To keep consistent, I agree with that. I also would just make it to where the vigilante doesn't get shot by witch night 1, but this isn't a witch rework, this is a trickster rework. And then something that I leaned on and I really thought about, and I didn't do it for this first set just because I didn't know how powerful it would be perceived, is Trickster should have unlimited uses, but not usable by Retributionists, which is how I think the current Trickster should be. And lastly is 07's comments, feeling like a side grade to Tavern Keeper, but rather than being stopped of using your ability, the ability is went back onto yourself. And it feels like an enhanced role blocker, but better than the current Trickster. And that is my big rework of Trickster. This took a lot of time to put together, a lot of planning out, not necessarily go into places, but a lot of, what would this look like and what can I do to make this better? As I said, this was kind of in the oven for quite a bit. I want to thank Mystic for helping me workshop this, and a lot of the smarter ideas, as I've been saying, have been hers, and a huge shout out to her for all the help and comments. Also special thanks to DGF and 07 for giving thoughts on the current version, to where I can share some from, prominent people in the community. And then last, a big thank you to Curtis for getting the graphics for the achievements. You will see those graphics being used more, trust me. But that is all. I want you to give your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like something that you saw, let me know. If this is something that you'd like to see, this took quite a bit to put together, but my goal is to be able to put these larger videos together. And so if you did enjoy this, let me know. We're not going to do a role rework next time, but I do have a problem with a lot of the current achievements. So we might be doing a role rework achievements next time. We'll see you then.